So again, everyone, thanks very much for coming today. Certainly appreciate your time. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about the three different parts of our solution. And we're going to try to get into some detail. Naturally, we only have about 25 minutes left, so we're not going to have all the time in the world, but I think we'll get through a lot of this today. To start off, WhenToManage has been around for about 8 years. Our focus initially was labor scheduling, and then we quickly added on the inventory management solution. Of course, needed a solid integration to support how sales data transacts into our dashboard, so you can see that real-time sales information that's so critical in making decisions in your business. So those are the solutions that we built, but we realized something after we've sold this product to thousands of operators and then installed it into many different operations, that when we start the sales proposition and the sales pitch to our customer base, we kind of hear a lot about their spreadsheets and or for other software programs, I should say. So many operators have several spreadsheets that run through the organization. You might think like a hamster in a wheelhouse. It's moving from one task to another, to another, to another, and we realize that the manager is the one kind of pushing that spreadsheet around all day long for the sake of the owner who may need that great data. But it gets a little overwhelming. And what we've realized in working with our operators and managers and customers is that a lot of the tasks that need to get done actually don't get done because the spreadsheet becomes the job. It's the most important activity that maybe the owner needs at the end of the night, or general manager does, uses to assess performance. And so it's the main thing the manager needs to be doing. And we all know that's not true. We all know the most important activity is serving guests, maybe participating in some marketing programs. And so we thought, well, what if there's a whole new way we could do these activities? What if there's a better way, a faster way using technology? And so we look at ourselves as a bit of a spreadsheet killer, and this whole new way was the WhenToManage platform that you see today. And if you can think of one image to bring you forward into this presentation today, I would give you this image. Our objective, and it's a lofty one, is to try to be the restaurant operating system. It's the one thing that helps you grow your business. You need a POS system to start your business, a back office system to really grow your business. And that's what we aim to do with labor scheduling, workforce management, inventory management, as well as business intelligence. Okay, enough of the PowerPoint deck. Let's get into the actual software here. So the first thing you might see on your screen when a manager might log in today, or the enterprise user, which is how I'm logged in right now, or the master user, if you will. In this case, I operate 3 different locations. Well, the first thing you might see is this dashboard. And on this dashboard, there might be a myriad of components that are feeding you information about maybe particular items, maybe particular employees, but I'm seeing this information real time. And in some cases, I might want to drill down into the actual details, where I can click on an excessive amount of adjustment detail, for example, in this report here. The data is coming directly from the point of sale system, so we have a syncing tool that's syncing that information real time, capturing up to 5 years or more sometimes of historic information and presenting it here, where I can then, of course, run my reports. So like a lot of you with your news feeds, or maybe you review your stocks or stock reports, whatever, it's how you start your day, and it's how you manage your day throughout the rest of the day part, for that matter. So this is what the dashboard is trying to do. It's trying to prevent you graphical representation in some cases. It's trying to give you your daily sales reports. So it's really giving you that information real time as when you need it. Now, if you create a custom report, you can also add that to your dashboard here. And speaking of personalization, one thing we try to create is something that we try to create a way to make this really easy, a way to make sure that whenever you modify your dashboard experience or any task within our system, it's simple to do. So one thing we might do is look at the dashboard setup. Now, when we do that, we're thinking, well, what would be kind of the must-haves? Well, you need to be able to drag and drop stuff. You need to be able to add reports in from a library. Well, those things are all true. Now, our model is that we're enterprise focused. So we assume that the enterprise user, or maybe the admin, has the wherewithal to say, okay, this is actually a more important topic or issue now. The adjustment detail, hey, we've opened these 3 different locations. We're not so much concerned about them, so we're going to go ahead and delete that now. We don't need to be monitoring those worries anymore. Or maybe I want to add a new module, and when I do, it's going to load in the upper left-hand corner and present itself where I can then start to drag and drop it around to fit what I think is most important for me. So you can see in this case, we have an extensive library. And that library is, of course, a lot more visible when you go to our Reports tab. But in this case, we'll go ahead and just add adjustment detail back on. And we're going to just run through the query here. We're going to look at all stores, maybe all revenue centers, and we can choose a period, let's just say last week, and we'll add that to our dashboard. It's going to load in the upper left-hand corner, like I mentioned, and then from there, we start to drag and drop and reset that up. Now, the manager or the super user also has control of the managers see as well. And many of our users will start to modify the dashboard experience of those store managers almost weekly. So you can make the same modifications here. It's more of like a top-down approach where you're trying to make sure that everyone is on the right task at the right time. So if I refresh my dashboard, we go back to where we started, and we have a little bit of a new look and feel from the adjustments I did on the right side. Not that hard of a task, easy to accommodate changes that you feel are necessary in the organization. So just a little bit of a recap. We actually go through a process where we install the POS or install our applet. In some cases, it may be a direct feed like a web-based POS system, but we make sure that data is polling, and that's polling that sales and labor information, so clock in, clock out, wage details, all that is presented to our servers, which is then refactored and you're presented here for you on a dashboard. And that task is completed by us, sometimes working with you or your reseller. And it's happening again every 15 minutes when we actually complete the setup process. And we do some validation. We know data is important, so we'll make sure that whatever we put together, the data is exactly matching or as close to possible matching with the sales data you have in the point of sale system. The caveat with it being close to matching is the fact that in some cases there might be a menu item that you have corrupted where we don't want to match that data. So we go through again that data validation process to make sure everything is solid and what you're seeing is exact to your operation. Our Reports tab gives you a little more power as well than just the dashboard. So in the case of a dashboard, you're getting good information, but you may need to travel around a little bit. You may need it mobile. So in this case, we have a couple of features for you. But before I get into those, let's just look at the library options that we have here. First, we have our sales category, labor, inventory, and admin. Admin is things like sales loss control by employees, so cash handling reports. It's accounting reporting detail. It's a way you also can get a daily manager logbook feed, which we also have a part of this solution. So there's a lot of reports here as well. Now, if you need to, if you go with our more advanced solution, you do have the opportunity to create your own reports. I mentioned that spreadsheet early on, and I probably shouldn't have dogged it so much, but I wasn't trying to so hard. The fact is, if you do have that spreadsheet, in this case, with this interface, you can actually recreate a lot of that spreadsheet and add it back into the solution. So for example, if I click on this cell, click on data, and click on all, you're going to see how we query all the data from your point of sale system, including our own internal app, so like inventory and scheduling. So if you created a spreadsheet that looks at net sales by hour, by store, maybe some adjustment details, and you love that spreadsheet, well, that thing can live on here inside of these data tags, which we use or teach you to use to create your own reports. So it's a very powerful solution, and you can see the depth that we go to help you create those reports. And the goal, again, with this, ease of use. So that is a part of a reporting platform. I think it's, in some cases, those folks using the more advanced functionality might very much appreciate. Now, I mentioned the mobile part of this. Well, there's a couple ways we can do that. One is we have this alerts tool. So in the case of an operator that, well, needs some interaction from the staff based on triggers, well, we can do that here. It's kind of like exception-based reporting, or I should say an exception-based alert. So in this case, if I set the trigger value at 0 and I want to go to $150, well, I can do that. And when I make that when I set that trigger value, it's going to say, well, how long do you want to monitor this? At this point, it may be just today or maybe in perpetuity. It kind of depends on what I want to do. But if I'm happy with this trigger, if I'm happy about labeling this concern here, once we indicate that update from the point of sale system, we send you, your managers, anybody you kind of desire in the operation a text message and or email. Now, it will depend on their profile. If you select only email, well, then they'll only get email. But the point is that trigger alert is coming to you, and you can now, you're more aware of the excessive comps, voids, overtime, scheduled overtime, overtime hours, labor costs, even if stores are transferring product back and forth to each other. So there's a lot of power in this alerts functionality. You can also subscribe to reports. So for those of you that may get a daily news feed of the sports section of your favorite newspaper or magazine, well, you can also get a feed from your business as well. You can title this however you'd like. So some people call this like daily staff meeting, Monday morning meeting, whatever it is. You can add that here, and then you can have a daily or weekly subscription. So you get to decide what's most important to you. You can also set this subscription to start and end at a particular time or a particular day, and then send to you at a particular time. You can also choose your recipients, just like before. So in this case, I have enterprise users, which is corporate team, store managers, maybe a single store manager, maybe everybody in the wheelhouse. I get to choose who receives this data, and then finally I choose my report. Now in this case, I'm going to change it to the employee item sales. It's going to run through a little bit of a query here. So it's asking me what store and or group of stores. So we have a very sophisticated way to create regions, districts, and then change those up again if we need to. Very powerful solution set there. We can also look at different revenue centers like we talked about a little bit before, and then the different menu items. Let's say I'm doing a category sales campaign, and I want to see what staff member has actually created or has sold most of these this category. So around this category, you can see I have these three here, but we'll just focus on the overall category. And we're looking at yesterday or last week or last month's sales. We got a nice little quick key report there, or a quick key option. And then for this point, I just want to see the PDF, but I get that as Excel and CSV too. So at this point, I'll save my changes and we updated the subscription. So now I can walk with my coffee, look at my dashboard, have it open all the time as it's constantly refreshing. Then I can also receive an alert, and I can set my subscription. So what have I done? I've effectively managed my day without even doing much but a few clicks here and there. Pretty easy way to keep data front and center with your operation. So that's the data portion of the solution, and it's the capstone to all that we do. So all the processes that your managers may follow, everything is bundled into here. Let's get into the settings page real quick again, and I want to go and talk a little bit more about inventory, the setup process, and then we'll get back into labor scheduling and how the managers interact with the solution. So with our inventory application, how many of you have actually used an inventory application? Raise your hand. Aha, several. Anyway, so that's kind of a joke. But anyway, since I can't see you. But if you have used an inventory system before, or you have one that maybe you've used as an Excel spreadsheet, well, most of the time you're going to have to get the data into the application. And we also require that same task. Because what we're trying to do is get all your inventory item or your product order guide into our application, and we're trying to catalog each item. We're trying to know, tell me what this item is doing throughout the life cycle of its existence within the operation. It came into the store. When it got into the store, how much did it cost? How much did you receive? Who received it? What purveyor sent it to you? And I want to see all that, and I want it then to account for it. Now that it's in the store, where did it go? It went to a prep list. It got butchered. It went into a sales transaction. So I can see that travel to the next step of its life cycle, which is really production or use in the kitchen. Then it got sold. The guest enjoyed it. Now, at the end of the day, I need to go count and see what's left. So we're trying to see how this product moves through the organization, and we need to know a lot about it. So in this case, is there a special reference number we need to add? Is there a different category? Is it a major item, maybe for reporting separately from all the other items? What's the use by, which we can also alter? What's the initial cost? What physical inventories do we need to count it in? We do think a weekly count works great, but you can also have a daily hot count too. Next, we have a yield percentage. So in the case of our system, this is kind of like a waste tool. So it's tracking how much yield this item may net over its use. Do we need to normalize the product? Maybe where it's like ketchup or salt where the full usage is not reflected, so you don't need to account for every little bit there. Do we need to log prep events, maybe butcher events? All that's baked into this catalog. We know who are you purchasing from, what was the last purchase price, what's the order by, the stock by. All that's so critical to making sure inventories were deployed correctly. Now, we have an import process that we work with you on, or we can do it ourselves depending on what level of the consulting plan that you choose, and we work with you to choose that. And once that's been that makes the process of implementation a lot easier. Once those items are loaded into the system, and we next sync up to the point of sale system, and when we do that, we're seeing all the menu items on the point of sale. So like you saw before, we had the food appetizer, cheese, fried mushrooms, wings, all that's here. And if I click on the wings entree, your task is to update your recipes. So there's a menu item name, there's a price. Next, we choose the recipe ingredients. So that same list that we saw earlier, we choose here, and we start to make changes to this recipe. So in this case, we're going to add 1 each hot dog to this wings entree. So when we sell this wings entree, we're theoretically depleting all these items. So that's the bulk. I mean, there's several other tasks that are required to launch inventory that a lot of times we take on, help you design your count sheets, looking at your costing. There's many different ways we can put this together for you, but those are the 2 bulkiest tasks that are involved in inventory management. And if you're using our integration tool, we do have the opportunity where we can integrate to the invoices of the supplier, where that same data I mentioned, the starting point of all life cycles for all products, comes in automatically. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me with all that. Let's go into the manager workflow so we can get a little more sense of what they're doing on a daily basis. So remember, I mentioned earlier I have 3 stores that I'm managing. I'm going to look at Project P. That's the one that I'm going to focus on here. Now we're logging into the, the manager's dashboard. So there's a bit of a change here when it comes to what they're seeing on their screen. We have a different dashboard. We have these other tabs here as well that account for labor scheduling, inventory management, even some other tools as well. So you're seeing here, in this case, I'm having my managers focus on the staffing issues that we have, employee availability, attendance. Totally up to you to define what's important here. Let's get into the inventory functionality, then we'll get into labor scheduling. So to do theoretical analysis, which is really tracking what was sold versus what's missing from the shelf, we do need that POS integration, but in the sense of task management, the manager only really needs to do 3 tasks. Task number 1 is invoice management. Now, like I mentioned before, if we have a Cisco integration or US Foods or Gordon Foods or several others, if we have that, this task is pretty much non-existent. You still need to kind of manage the invoice, but all of that invoice data is going to come over automatically. So I can add that invoice here if I do have a manual invoice that I need to track, maybe a local farmer who doesn't have a sophisticated ERP system, or again, if it's Cisco or one of these other broadline purveyors, we can just pull that data in immediately. But in this case, we'll just pretend Cisco is not integrated at this time, and we're just going to walk through the process of setting up an invoice. Now, the invoice is built by purveyor, so there's not a whole lot of thinking the manager has to do when it comes to the actual invoice process. They don't have to create any new fields. It's all kind of laid out for them. I'm just going to add a check number here. The next thing we're going to do is go back up, and we're going to select the products that we order from this purveyor. Now, I mentioned before, in the setup process, we've already put this together, right? We already know the description details. We already know the name of the product. We already know the unit of measure, how you receive it, how you order it. Everything's already laid out. The manager doesn't have to do a whole lot of thinking here. In fact, what's really cool about this is, I was talking to an operator yesterday. He said it's really important that managers know when these price changes come from the purveyor. So if there's a price change, he wants them very aware of it. And this is what the system does. It's engaging the managers into the value understanding of the business. So if they just put an invoice in an envelope and send it off, they're not going to know how much these purveyors may be charging you, or maybe the decrease or increase in cost over time. Whatever the case may be, it was a really interesting point that WhenToManage gives visibility into that. Now that I've got my invoice set up, I'm going to go ahead and approve that invoice. I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to create this, and now my accounting team doesn't have to run around and search for this. Now you're probably looking here, or you probably saw earlier when I was walking through that workflow, hey, he said the invoice was $500, but I saw about $3,000 worth of value. Well, the system is telling me at this point that we have an unbalanced invoice. So the requisition amount is not actually matching allocated. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there that before we close our week out, which will be task 3, which I'll get to in a moment, we need to make sure that's balanced. The next task is going to be counting. So we've already designed these count sheet by location, so you can update this by each location. They have different storage opportunities, whatnot. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and edit my count sheet. And we've already actually started on some of the accounting process so far. But here I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down. I can print out the worksheet, hand it. Oops, I went a little too far. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and maybe hand off these sheets to maybe some staff members who complete this process as well. So it's really easy for them to put it on a clipboard and then run back to the back office to complete their counts. You can also display previous counts with receipts as well if you want to show the last count and if we've done any purchasing. Now, if you need to do some of these tasks on a mobile device, you do have that opportunity here. So we'll go back to Project P. This is give you a sense of what our user interface looks like on a tablet. I can do my counts. I can transfer from one store to another, track waste, track production, run reports, see who's working. A lot of that stuff is available for me here. It is recognizing that I'm on a browser, so that's why it's kind of looks a little bit different, but you get the idea. Those are big buttons that you would use. And then, of course, if I want to edit my count, same process would occur. I can just enter these in. Once you enter in, for example, one of these sections here, you just scroll up and down, and you can make the count happen that way. So it's a really easy way to do counts. You can even hand the iPad over to one of your staff members where they can complete that process as well. So that's task number 2. We need to know how much is left. Very important. Next is inventory. So, or I should say, closing your week out. The final task is making sure every invoice is accounted for, it's balanced, and then at that point, when we close that week, we're closing out the counts, we're closing all the invoices, and guess what? You just saved $150 on accounting fees just by at least 1 hour of your account. They don't have to search around. Everything's balanced. Everything looks good. The manager's aware. They are knowledgeable of what they have brought into the store. So now that's completed, I just basically click this button. It'll look through all my invoices, make sure everything looks good, or you can do this automatically. And in Enterprise User, guess what? They can easily go back in and change up or reopen a closed week to make even further edits if necessary. You know, because sometimes mistakes are made, counts get missed, and we may want to make sure everything looks pretty good. Okay, that's inventory. 3 tasks, about 10 clicks, not too hard. I'd wager maybe a little bit easier than your spreadsheet process, and it's web-based, and everyone has access to it. Everyone can help out that floor manager who may be slammed that day with tracking their inventory. Again, with these tasks, you're going to get theoretical analysis, what was sold versus what's missing from the shelf. You're going to be able to track variance in our inventory usage report. You're going to see cost of goods sold by profit or profit by menu item. You're going to be able to see the fluctuation of your prices, basically your own mini commodity market inside of our reporting app. Okay, let's get into labor scheduling. Remember the big funnel. So far we've funneled in all your data. Now we've funneled in all your inventory. Now we're funneling in all your labor. So I've started on my workflow here today on this screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my coverage report. Show me what's going on. So I'm going to click on this link here, and it's going to show me every 15-minute increments or however I got this set up, who's working. I can see it by maybe by employee, I can see it by the job, and I can review this information here. A lot of managers will print this out, rerun this report just to make sure they're on with what they think is proper for the day. If I go to the staff schedule here, I can actually start to maybe change up my schedule if I need to, because a lot of things happen throughout the day where I need to make a modification. Staff members also have access to this solution as well, where they can change up their availability, request time off, trade and swap shifts, all with manager approval or not. You can actually restrict them from doing anything if you want to. You can also control things like how many hours they work, what's the work day overtime, the work week overtime, so that if I do start to overschedule, like so for example here, she's 2.25 hours over the maximum, I as a manager am aware of that now. I don't have to remember. It's showing me based on the settings I need to make an alteration. So in that case, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on the pencil. This schedule has been published. It has been sent out to the team via text message, email, their phone, and in some cases actually pushed into the point of sale system to manage early clock in and late clock out. So if I click OK, it's allowing me to edit the schedule. I'm going to take this cursor here, drag it into the text field here. And next thing, lower down the scheduling, because I think we'll reach the proper amount of time that Shirley is allowed to work. So if I make the adjustment, we should see the conflict at least reduce or adjust. And look, we're at 28.75 hours. No conflicts on this particular schedule. We're looking pretty good. On the right-hand side here, you can see all the tallies. So we're pulling in, like I mentioned before, the job details of that employee, the wages, the clock in and clock out data. So I can see all that here as I start to compile my schedule. If I scroll down to the bottom, I might see this is kind of a different layout. You can do day part set out. This is kind of looking at every hour as a day part, but you can do a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, it's up to you to define how you want to see this layout with these different options for you. But in this case, I'm looking at the staff schedule. This is where we started right here. But I can also see all schedules. So if you can have as many schedules as you'd like, you might have front of the house, back of the house, special event, whatever the case may be, you're seeing the totals all tallied here. So again, I'm aware, more fully aware of the labor costs. We do have a forecasting tool. Please reach out to me for more details since we're short on time. I'm not really going to get into that, but the idea being that you can track your labor hours as a cost, a percent of net sales. You can create shift models. You can schedule, forecast by the job, by the day part. There's even further options from that are way more advanced. So be sure to reach out to me if you have questions there. What is this icon? Well, because we made a modification with that one employee, we are going to click on this link or click on that icon, a little button, and it's going to send an email out to Shirley Barnes letting her know that she has an adjusted schedule. So she just got a text message. She can see it on her phone. She got an email. It also got pushed into the point of sale system as well. You can print out the schedule if necessary too. Make sure everyone gets a copy of that. You can include the end times, maybe eliminate some visibility of employee phone numbers, etc. Or include those if you want to as well, and print those out and put that into the employer so those people that want to view this can view that when they see it's important. So I'm 1 minute over time. I do appreciate everyone's attendance at this presentation today. Before we close up, I just want to talk a little bit about our deployment programs, as I think it's really important you understand how we actually maximize the environment that we've created for you. I think it's really important to understand the process that we go through, because you might go through the process several times. Okay, the first thing we do is we make sure we've got the project program up and running just like you need it. Now, if it's just a standalone labor scheduling solution, not a problem. You can buy that. We even have standalone inventory that's not integrated to the point of sale system, so there's options there too. Next, we can look at if there's any custom reports, any custom apps, how much training do you need, if any? What kind of hours of deployment are we looking at? And then finally, what solutions do we need to bolt on to the opportunity? After we do this, we have a little project launch call. We make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that you're getting what you expected. This is kind of a true up before we charge you a dime. We make sure we conduct that meeting. Next, we sync up the point of sale system. We receive the data. We make sure we validate it, make sure it looks good. Then we go through an architecture setup. Is this, are we on track? Is this exactly what we kind of propositioned early on? Yep. Then we can start our inventory processes and maybe imports or create some scheduled templates for you as well. We kind of get you started, so then we go through our training programs and manage your account launch. You're a little ahead of the curve to say, oh, okay, well, they already got some data in here. I can see what's going on. In some cases, you're involved in this process soup to nuts. So you're actually part of the deployment team versus just us doing it. And that's where the lower price point might be an advantage to you. Finally, we launched our account and started our support programs. With our monthly fees, support is included. Thank you for staying with me on that. I think it's important that in some cases, again, like I mentioned, you might go through this several times in the process that might take 30 to 45 days, especially if it's a complicated inventory account. Otherwise, we try not to bill before 30 days because we know we need a little bit of time to make sure your account is set up properly, so you get a little bit of time to use it first before we fully start the subscription billing. That being said, I want to thank you all again for coming to this presentation. If you do have any questions, you can email us at sales@WhenToManage.com, or you may have our emails directly. Again, my name is Walker. My colleague Brian Welsh is on the call as well, and we certainly hope to hear from you. Thank you again for attending.